Thank you for coming to another episode of the Grief Empowerment Theory. I'm Jay Lewis III. I'm your host, and today I have an incredible guest. This young lady, her name is Claire Schwartz. Claire is a coach, a speaker, a book author. You know what? I'm not even going to run a resume down. Claire, why don't you talk to the audience about yourself and about where you're from, about what you do?
Thank you, my friend. Thank you for having me. Pleasure to be here. So I am Claire Schwartz. I am the owner and founder of Miriam's Well Healing, and you can heal your grief.com, which is where you can find me and all my information. I've been a healer and coach for closing on 18 years. My specialty is in the field of grief and trauma. And it is my passion and my privilege to help folks move forward from the hardest things in life, the things that can throw a bomb into your world and blow it apart. And we're here to help you put the pieces back together. So I work privately with clients. I also work as a speaker and consultant for organizations and companies, just to provide perspective and a space where the healing can happen. Because one of the difficult things is we believe that we're stuck with the terrible things that happen, and we are not stuck with the terrible things. It is a chapter in the story. It is not the end of your story. So I have worked hard in my training and my experience to build those steps with my clients. So I have BA in psychology. I'm a certified professional coach, spiritual counselor, also interfaith minister. And I'm a member of the American Academy of Experts in Traumatic Stress, and a few other thingamajiggies at the end of my name. But the important thing is the work and the space and the tools to help folks move forward in their lives. It's something I've been blessed and lucky to be able to do and continue to do. We're all a never-ending story until it does end. But as long as we're here, let's try to make things a little bit better.
You couldn't have said it any better. Be honest, Claire, when you think about what you do, people don't understand that the trauma and the grief it's a never-ending cycle, not necessarily with whatever particular thing, but over the course of your life, you're going to go through circumstances, and it's about how you navigate through them.
Exactly.
That's going to give you the benefits. What do you do when you speak to people that are, like you said, stuck and really don't feel that they have the capacity to move further? What are some of the things that you work with them to let them know they can move forward?
It's a deeply personal and individual process. It depends a little bit on what each person has been through, but it also depends on their history. It depends on their story. And it depends on their individual wiring. So I take a great deal of time with folks to really get into what I call the niggly bits, those things in the corner, those things way back there. You go, hold on a minute, there's this thread over here, and there's this story over there, and there's that tool. That didn't work. I wonder why that is. So being endlessly curious about the process and drawing folks out into talking about it, discussing it, examining it, and getting comfortable with the idea that healing is even possible. What does healing even mean? How do I get there? Who do I trust? What do I ask? There are all these preconceived things that until it happens to you, you don't even know are there. So that's part of why I wanted to talk about this subject, is talking about stigma, because people bring all of that with them when they start with us, right? I'm sure you've experienced this with your work as well, is that we have all these preconceived ideas, and where do those come from, and how do we get them out of the way before somebody even asks for help, right?
Well,
Yeah.
that's again, that's why I wanted to kind of segue into this, because the
Yeah.
concept of the stigmas related to grief and trauma, it's interesting because it will it will abate us. It'll keep us from even asking for help
Yeah.
because nobody wants to be looked at as being quote unquote strange,
Yep.
broken.
Yep.
And remember, we live in a society that allows imagery to make
Hmm.
people believe that everyone except for you is okay.
Right.
You
Right.
know, when
I
it
hear that from folks all the time. Like, oh, this person's life is so great, and why can't my life be like that? And I said, you know what? In all my years of doing this, I haven't met any perfect people.
I'm,
I haven't met somebody who's not struggling with anything. And if they're telling you that, perhaps not. Yeah, either they're not aware, or perhaps they're not looking at it, they're ignoring it. But everybody's got stuff. It may look shiny and pretty from the outside, but I guarantee you, I can almost guarantee you, there are things that you don't know about. It's that saying that we see go around. So everybody you see is struggling with something.
you're
Something.
right. You're right, Claire. When I speak to clients who have a similar outlook, oh my God, why is my life so bad? Everybody's and I give them I talk to them about a few people who have made decisions to end their life they thought, after the world thought.
Yeah.
I talk about Robin Williams. I talk about Kate Spade.
Yeah.
I talk about Kurt Cobain.
Kurt
And I'm
Cobain.
like,
Yeah.
I'm like,
There's a lot of it.
all these people had the world behind them.
Yeah.
They were unhappy inside.
And Robin Williams had an illness,
Yes.
um, that was going to destroy his life. And that's but he had so many struggles, and that was one of my heroes. And it's many years that he's gone. It's very difficult to not see the sad behind all of the genius,
Right.
and it's a really hard thing. And we see this all the time with celebrities who think, oh, they've got fame, they've got piles of money, they've got the world on a string, their life must be great. But they are people.
Right.
They are people who live under stress and pressure that we can't quite understand, where every single minutia of their lives gets splayed out in front of the world in seconds.
Right. They pick their nose and the
Yeah.
world knows about it.
Yeah. I mean, that's a whole different kind of pressure. And like, guess what? They're just people. We're all just people trying to deal with the stuff that life has handed us. And the trick with the grief and trauma piece is so often it's things that we don't anticipate. It's things that we didn't see coming. It's things that come from others who come and dump terrible things into our lives. And even if we see it coming, the reality of it can be so shocking that it knocks you completely off your kilter. And so how to get people back upright and in life and moving forward again is the core of my work. And it's very very detailed. You really have to know somebody to know how to help them. And that's why I keep going back to the stigma thing. This is why it's such an important topic, right? Because people don't know how to feel. They don't know what to do, and they don't know who to ask. So, and then when they finally do ask for help, which is a whole other workshop, is that people get gaslit, dismissed, judged, silenced, and we're taught all the wrong things. That don't help. And even the most well-intentioned person possible can still squelch your spirit and your healing. It doesn't matter whether they mean to or not. If it is keeping you from getting the help that you need and deserve, then it's in your way. So I want to just cover a whole bunch of those. If I, you know, in our, it's longer than this slot allows. This is often a 2-hour workshop that I do, but it's so important to just delve into those things and just take them apart and go, nope, not true, nope, not helpful, and here's what is true, here's what works better. Let's shift that, let's open that up, let's provide some light into that darkness. We cannot heal just staying like this and afraid and small. Healing is this, right? Upright, open, and in a trusted healing space. So important that people have a space and a time that this is my sacred space. This is my healing space where I am not judged, where I can bring all my stuff. And we're gonna take it apart. We're gonna get into those niggly bits and turn them into better bits.
So let me ask you this:
Yeah.
When your clients come to you and say, "Well, I tried to talk to my husband. I tried to talk to my mother. I tried to talk to some friends, but no one understands me."
Yeah.
How do you talk with them to let them know that, like you said, it's not that they don't understand you, but they may not have the intention
Yeah.
of saying to you that this is wrong, that they don't understand. It's just that they don't understand. And instead of, you know, necessarily telling you, I don't understand you,
Yeah.
they, like you said, they're going to gaslight you.
Yeah. There's some of the most common things is asking for help is weak. What's wrong with you? Why aren't you better? Why can't you just get over it? Get over it. We don't like that phrase at all, do we? It's so incredibly painful. And so part of the question is, you know, by if somebody is talking to me, they're already ahead of the game, which is great. So what I want to say to the folks who are in that situation of, you know, they're trying to talk to family members, it's not everybody's going to get it. Not everybody's going to get it. But it has nothing to do with weakness. It has nothing to do with crazy. It's you are hurt and you need some help. And just because you're related to someone doesn't necessarily mean that's the right person to support you. And to keep looking until you find that space where you do feel heard, where you are accepted, where somebody is going to say, oh, wow, that's really hard. I'm so sorry. Do you need to just vent for a while? I'm here to listen. How can I help you? When someone comes from a space of openness and understanding, you will feel it. You will feel it. And family, you know, we tend to put family on a pedestal, but we don't choose our family. We can choose who else we talk to. And it can be a friend, it can be a religious figure, it can be a coach or a counselor. And it doesn't have to be me or you. Just find somebody, find a space where you feel heard, because that rejection, and it can happen repeatedly. It is, don't give up. Keep looking until you find it. It is out there. It is out there. And if somebody contacts me and I'm not the right fit, I'm happy to refer you out to somebody else, right? But it's such a personal thing, is that It has to be that safe space to really, the more you can bring to the surface in your healing work, the better your healing is going to be. And we have all sorts of preconceived notions about what that healing space needs. I'd like to flip it also to, if someone comes to you and shares something that you're uncomfortable with. I just had this with a client recently, where a friend was unloading all of their stuff because they were so close. And finally she said, I'm not trained to do this. I love you and I want you to get better. Maybe we should ask Claire. And again, it doesn't have to be me, but she knew her friend needed help. But she responded with love and with kindness. It's like, I don't know how to help you. I'm here to listen. Share anything you want. Let's add to that. Let's add to the scope of things that are available to you for healing, because it's out there. It's definitely out there. And these are the things that will stop your life in its tracks if you let it. But it's new ways of looking at things, new tools. And it's work, but it's the most important work of our lives, is to get the things out of our way so that we can have some joy and have some fulfillment with the time that we've got. Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Adding on, it's interesting because I speak to my clients and talk to them about the fact that having a conversation with me, you taking the time to speak with me proves how brave you are, how strong you are.
100%.
I said, what's interesting is in your vulnerability, you
Yes.
have created such a pillar of strength.
Yes.
It's hard to believe because you don't know me from Adam.
Right.
And, maybe you've gone on a recommendation, maybe you've seen a post, maybe, but again, and mind you probably have gone to your friends and your family first and you haven't been received well.
Yeah.
So now you're coming to an absolute stranger
Right.
and want to have a conversation. That's the
And it's our job to earn their trust.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely.
Right.
And now, when you engage with your clients,
Mm-hmm.
when you have that conversation with them, um, what are the key things that you discuss with them? Because again, they're probably coming from a place of being stagnant.
Yes.
How do you develop that trust with them?
Yeah. And it's partially just that piece of really getting to know their story, right? And what has worked in the past and what hasn't. And getting to know some of those myths, and they'll sometimes sort of come to the surface as we're talking. Sometimes it's things that they've been taught, right? They've been taught that this work is for crazy people. Deeply unhelpful, yeah, and really damaging. I mean, if you're hurt, I don't use that word in my practice. Someone's hurt is not crazy. Asking for help is not crazy. There is a big stigma around the whole counseling, coaching environment, that it's weak, that it's for crazy people, and so that judgment of, you can feel that eye roll coming from somebody, right? I'm like, you're going to counseling. I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm asking for help because I want to make my life better. And you will never hear that in one of my sessions. So just go where the help is available. Just go where you feel welcome. And I'm not telling you to reject your family, but you have You are not required to share your vulnerability with people who haven't earned your trust. So people can tell fairly quickly if you meet them with compassion, compassion, right? People feel heard. Where you present them with this, right? An open hand, to get that up to the camera, an open hand and an open heart and sincerity. People know the difference.
Yes.
Now, whether they can receive that is a different issue, but compassion makes a difference, and somebody's inner life will respond to that. Their gut will feel that, and you can feel the walls drop. You just go, oh, yes, yes, okay. And it's an energy, and we are energy beings, right? You can sense it if someone is providing you a welcome space or not, and that's really the key. Um, so yeah, does that answer your question?
It does. Let me ask you this. I mean,
Yeah,
you said something perfect when you talked about the compassion aspect. When what people don't realize is that they're not looking for a sympathetic soul. They're looking for an empathetic ear.
yeah,
And that empathetic ear is a produces the compassion that a person is needing.
yeah,
You need somebody that can understand you,
yeah.
not someone that can pat you on the head and tell you it's going to be okay.
Mm, yeah. That patronizing piece is actually the opposite of compassion.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about your book, Putting Out the Fire.
Oh, putting out the fire. Is this going to show up the right way? It's backwards. I'm like, whoop, there we
Nope,
go.
it's forward. There we
Is
go.
it forwards? Okay, good. I can never tell with these cameras. So yeah, this is a book that I wrote initially in 2015, actually. Oh my goodness. Um, so when my mother passed away nearly 30 years ago, and just a quick sidebar is people often ask why I do this work. Why do you do grief and trauma like you? I have grief and trauma in my life. It's what I come from all the way back to my first memory. So people say, do what you know. This is what I know. And I've learned a great deal about it in terms of my healing journey. Um, I'm not supposed to still be here, and I'm very proud of the fact that I still am. I've worked really hard at that. Um, but when my mother passed nearly 30 years ago, I was a kid, and there was no sort of grief and loss out in the ethos at all. And I went looking for books, and it was very frustrating because I ended up with these huge, 300-page things, and I had very specific questions. The detail that I bring to my practice is how I look at everything. And that's just the way I'm wired. So I had very specific questions about how to manage all of this. And yeah, I was going to see somebody twice a week, but they didn't have the tools either. So I was barely holding on by my fingernails. And those initial couple of months were absolute torture. I had a nervous breakdown. I couldn't work. Um, Sleeping, eating, drinking all went out the window. All the drinking came in, the sleeping went out. And so I just, I needed something else. And one of not finding the tools was one problem, and finding books that were huge, where I just kept looking and looking and looking and looking, and I might find 3 lines on page 247. But the amount of effort you can't focus on things, right? Your attention span is this big. You can't. So I made my book tiny and accessible. And so it is nurturing mind, body, and spirit in the first week of loss and beyond. So it's not about the time scale, because it has helped people whose losses are long ago. But it's about those beginning things, those beginning shocks. How do you navigate when it's just happened and you're going, What's my name? Where I always tell the story of in those first few weeks after she passed, I literally forgot how to drive. Um, and I also had to resist the urge to fling my car into a tree. So I handed my keys to my boyfriend at the time, and I was like, "Don't let me drive."
Yeah.
And then a few weeks later, I had to drive, and it was terrifying. I got back to it, but it took a few months to straighten out my brain and get back to working, sort of. But my life completely changed after that. And when I finally got back to doing what I'm supposed to be doing, that's a long story. That's also in the book. Um, the book was part of developing the tool that I wish I had found back then. So it's very much about, when that phone call hits. And that for me, that was the phone call in the middle of the night. And within 20 seconds, my life was never the same. And the shock, I should have been in the hospital, actually, because I went into shock. And what do you do with your self-care? Who do you ask for help? Who do you want around you, and who do you definitely not want around you? How do you manage all the business bits, right? How do you manage judgments? How do you manage these are the short-term decisions. What do you have to decide now? What can wait? Please don't decide this now. So all of those things that hit you at a million miles an hour are really difficult because you are feeling 17 emotions at once, and you are also completely numb at the exact same moment. Mm-hmm. How do you navigate this when you have all these decisions to make, travel arrangements, speeches? How are you going to eat? What happened to the dog? I don't know. So, I mean, your life goes completely haywire. How do you navigate that? That's the book I wish I had 30 years ago. So that's the book I wrote.
It's interesting because when grief brain takes over, after something happens, I mean, it's funny.
Yeah.
When I just read something that was interesting, it was related to losing your spouse, because that's another thing I deal with.
Sure.
And these scientists in China have actually created a scenario where they made it look like romantic love was comparable to being on coke. And then they said that what's crazy is when you lose that person unexpectedly, you have gone cold turkey.
Right.
Where most cocaine addicts have to be weaned off.
Right. And it is part of that. I mean, it is when someone is that deeply in your ethos, in your day-to-day reference, and all of a sudden they're gone. Biologically, and there are a couple of good books on this. The Grieving Brain is a great book on this. Yeah. It is that your psyche really needs to relearn how to function because you keep reaching for that person and they're not there.
Your neural pathways, according to her book, your neural pathways literally shift.
Yeah, I mean, literally.
It was interesting because it's funny you brought her up. I recently read her again because she gave that coffee table scenario.
Mm-hmm.
And it was incredible because a lot of people don't realize that, when you're going through, when you lose someone, a mother, a child, a spouse, even a grandparent if you're really close to them,
or
You know,
anybody really anybody that you're close to,
right,
and
right,
that can also reflect in losing an animal companion.
exactly,
um yeah,
exactly.
so
And
yeah.
what's interesting is there was you now have to find a way to address the void.
Yes.
You know they're supposed to be there,
Mm-hmm.
but they're not. I I actually I remember for me, there were times where I would hear my wife's voice. I would see her in the crowd, I thought.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, a lot of people go through those type of things.
Yeah.
They see now when you when a client has come to you and they say something like, you know, I recently heard heard them. I recently saw them, this, and that. How do you have that conversation with them to let them know that, again, this is your brain having a, having fun with you. We'll put it that way. This is your brain.
It's such a sensitive topic, right? Because there's a lot of beliefs around that, so you want to be very mindful not to, um, you know, it really, very often you have to pay a lot of attention to, is that person feeling that experience as something comforting or as something painful. So that's a big key, and that's why it's so individual. Um, some people are like, but I still, but, and that means they're fighting something. Or somebody's like, oh yeah, I saw a seashell, and that's a sign. I'm like, great, that's awesome, that's lovely, that's wonderful. You know, it's not our place to judge their reactions to it. It's paying attention to how is this feeding their overall emotional position. And it's, again, it's something they have to be mindful who they tell that to, because they're going to, with some folks, they're going to get that stigma, they're going to get that eye roll. I'm like, all right, you're seeing dead people, I don't know, that's crazy. Like, okay, no.
Right, right.
Compassion, it has to come back to compassion. Yeah, so yeah.
It's interesting. You talked about losing animal companion, and one of the most one of the most incredible things. I had this with a client recently who had a collie.
Mm,
I loved this collie to death, but of course, a lot of dogs look alike. So again, she's like, I'm in the park and I see this collie. You know, I knew it wasn't mine, but it reminded me of my dog. You
yeah.
know, and a lot of the times people see things like that, and
Mm-hmm.
and they have these reminders.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so again, it's it's all about, like you said, who you say it to, because
Yeah.
you know what, you have that conversation with somebody who is a friend who may know the dog, but
Yeah.
you're like, yeah, that's just. But then
Yeah.
you have a conversation with somebody who was in the household,
Right.
and they're like, you know, man, I'm glad you saw such and such because
Yeah.
it reminded you of such and such,
Exactly.
type of thing.
Exactly.
It
Yeah,
does come down to who you have the conversation with.
it
Um,
does. It does.
Clay,
Um, I want to make sure I get to a couple of destigmatizing
yes,
thingies. It's like specific examples. I mean, I've got dozens of them, of course, but just some of the things that we tell ourselves that get in our way is one category, and the things that we may hear from others. Um, and one category of that is, there's a lot of nevers. I'll never get over this. My life will never be the same. Um, and it's the truth is, your life has changed. Your life has changed. The only constant in life is change. And so, how to do this instead of this, right? So developing resilience through the loss. How do you rebuild? How do you rebuild? It's okay that your life is not the same. That's what life does. That's okay. And it's time to reinvent and adapt, and not suffer anymore. Um, and some people get very stuck on, and this usually reflects on older pieces, um, that they're not worthy of help. And that can be super painful. But there isn't anybody who's not worthy of help. And if you haven't had help before, you may not know what that looks like. How does it feel to actually feel better? And that takes some time and some care to craft those examples for people and to go, I think this is way better than you were a year ago. Because you're not having a meltdown, because you're not thinking about it 24/7. You might still be thinking about it 40% of the time. Okay. It's like, oh, but it came up again. That's okay. That's okay.
Right.
Of course it came up again. This is one of the most painful things that you've ever been through. Of course it came up again. The question is, what do we do with it? And can we do that together? Right. So for all of these things that we get taught, some folks get told some very ugly things about, sometimes about grief, but also about trauma. And it also depends on how the loss occurred. There's a lot of judgment that gets layered in if someone died from addiction, if someone died of suicide. There's still stigma around AIDS. So it's, again, finding that compassionate place of healing and understanding where you can heal properly, right? You can't heal in those spaces. And a lot of folks get some ugly flung at them, and that's upsetting, because all folks want to do is feel better. They just want to feel better. And it is doable. It absolutely is doable. I've seen it, I've walked it, I've lived it, as have you. And I think the more examples folks have of, yes, it's doable. I did it. I'm doing it. Not that we're over it, but we're in this constant space, reinvention. So now when we trip over something, I was just earlier this week was watching a live stream of a memorial, that was really emotional and really painful, and a loss that came completely out of the blue. But I have the tools to know how to deal with that now. Certainly more than I did when I was in my 20s. But it's, yes, your life will not be the same, but that's okay. That's okay. You don't want your life to stay one thing.
Right. Well, what's interesting is humans, we are so comfortable with the predictions. And when it changes, it seems like it's, oh my God. But
Yeah.
like you just said it earlier, change is the only constant.
Yes.
I mean, we have to go up, because if not, you'd be a baby all your life. So, but here's what's interesting. I think what I've realized, like I've spoken to my clients, and they're like, well, I don't understand why this person can't feel what I'm saying. Why they, I let them know a lot of times that the trauma and the grief and the pain and hurt that they're feeling. Listen,
Maybe. Yeah.
it's a lot of times is they don't want to deal with yours because they are still dealing with theirs. And
That's
that's
certainly possible.
an extra layer.
Yeah.
And even if it's not someone who has gone through some form of what you've done, some people just don't want to hear that stuff.
Yeah.
Because for them, it's like it brings down their mojo. If if you know what I'm saying. But the reality is that they just have a hard time handling
Yeah.
challenging information. So they're choosing.
Yeah.
They don't want to be. They don't want to be near it. They don't want to hear it. They don't want to hear your
No.
version of it. So they're going to give you this backlash to
Yeah.
to make sure you
Sometimes.
avoid from saying anything to them about it.
Yeah. Yeah. And what I encourage folks is like, okay, so that's not the right audience.
Right.
That's not the right audience. Is some folks really, truly do not see it. And rather than trying to force them to see it, that may not work in your favor, is to find that equation where you do feel heard and validated. You can't get blood from stone. So continuing to try to work that, like, however, if you do find a place where healing is not only permissible but encouraged, and where you actually get tools and where you can actually do some of the work and you start to change, those same people very often will come back to you and go, huh, you're different.
Right.
And they might be, oh wow, great, they might be happy for you, they might be confused.
Well,
And so it's so interesting, the long-term story of that, right?
it's interesting because it's funny. I heard this recently. You turn these people into unconscious admirers
Yes.
because they're looking. They're like, how this happened? And because I knew them then when they were
Right.
so broken,
Yeah.
and now, Claire, let me ask you, how can people reach you? Because I know that you do one-on-one sessions, and then you also do group counseling, and you speak. So, how can a person get in touch with you?
Yeah. So my main resource is my website, which I think yep, there it is. You can heal your grief.com. And that is the main place where people can reach me. I'm also on Facebook and LinkedIn. And I do individual is the bulk of what I do. And that's just your regular sessions. But I also have a more intensive program for folks who are really ready to do the healing. They want it now. They like that regular intensive support. And I do have an online portal where I can work with folks on a 3-month program, and it can be extended if necessary. But where somebody wants that, and it can be as much as daily support, where you get up in the morning and, oh, there's your worksheet, and oh, there's an inspirational quote, and oh, there's a video. So for folks who really want that, I only take like 1 or 2 folks like that at a time, because it is a lot of support, but it's a lot of feedback, and it's amazing what can be. And for some folks that can be much, but for some people thrive on that. They want that intensity. They need that, where once a week is a drop in a bucket. So for folks who are interested in that, that's my Fearless Grieving to Fearless Living program. That is also on my website. There's also the book. Also on my website. I just ask people to buy directly from me instead of from Amazon, if they would be so kind. I'm happy to provide them a lovely signed copy if they buy directly from me. So yeah, and there's a lot of flexibility in terms of what else I offer. If you want me to come speak to your company, if you want me to come speak to colleagues, and doing family work is also in my wheelhouse. So yeah, and looking for more ways to be of service. I think there's a tremendous amount of struggle going on, and trying to be that healing place of truth and tools, the truths and the tools that get you to move forward, and unstuck from the hardest things in life. You're not stuck with it. You just need the right space and the right tools and the right support.
Understood. Well, Claire, thank you for your time. I really appreciate you being able to grace this audience with your insights today, because understanding how people can overcome the stigmas related to the grief and the trauma that they've experienced is important, because that begins the process to open up a person's world.
Yeah.
So again, Claire, thank you for your time, and I really appreciate. Ladies and gentlemen, Claire Schwartz, touch base with her. I'm going to put all her information into the post that I do. Um, Claire, I just want to say this again before I let you go. It's amazing because, again, you and we talked about this off camera. We have very similar reasons for why we do what we do.
Yeah.
And we understand that, listen, things are going to happen.
Yeah.
But you make the choice
Yeah.
to stay stuck in the quicksand,
Yeah.
or to find a way to navigate through.
Yeah.
So again, Claire, thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. Ladies and gentlemen, Claire Schwartz, the name of her business is Miriam's Well Healing.
Mm-hmm.
Touch base with her.
You can heal your grief.
You know, I mean, it's important. So
Yeah.
thank you again. I really appreciate that.
Thank you. I'll see you soon.